Last night, I dreamt that there were many parts. I was walking around a small novelty store trying to kill time. There was a space like a large cafeteria, and they were serving pasta with cheese sauce and round chips with salsa. Women with hairnets were coming out with trays of individual orders. I contemplated eating there, but left that space, and this is when I sauntered through the stores. There was a woman looking at a small cube-like kaleidoscope contraption on a shelf, which were square or rectangular, with lots of smaller squares within each containing a different image. She pulled out a couple of squares from the bottom and examined them closely. I wanted to move on, so I went out to find another store, one of a thrift type that would have novelties, those that were previously owned by others. I went through some tight stairwells in a space that seemed old and abandoned, and came through a passageway onto the roof, through broken chain-link fences and over old wood boxes. It was night, and I had a feeling that we were going into forbidden territory. Then a woman appeared. It seemed that she was being territorial about the space, though she just stood in the background, with loose garments clenching a book to her chest. I took her presence to be a threat and quickly retreated. As I returned, taking side paths and jumped from bridge to ledge where I first saw her closely. Eventually, I felt as if I was lost and should just hail the first cab and tell him the address so I could get back. A cab pulled up. She seemed like a fancy older woman with some kind of fur cape. I peeked in the cab and there were still others in there. I could see a man with a top hat in the shadows. The cabbie's light was off and he was on his way. I felt extreme danger in this wasteland. The bus pull-up, I hopped in. I was so anxious and excited for some sort of controlled human contact. When entering the bus, I put my head down on the collection box and the driver laughed in disbelief. How could I be so arrogant as to relax before I paid my fare? This is when I knew I was accompanied by two others and I had to pay a fare for 3. I went through my money and saw a 5, 10, and 1. I thought, the 5 will cover it with $1 left over. I put a bill in and told him I even put extra in. He laughed again. I had put the $1 in by mistake. I continued to scramble and found one other and put that in. Then someone suggested that I put the $2 bill in. I put that in and he was surprised but satisfied. So when he started the bus, it was with a disoriented jolt and I was in his space. At this point, I got up to take a look at the people on the bus. It was an eclectic mix of a variety of races and ages. I remember seeing a young guy and girl, and they tried to explain where this bus was going. There was another point earlier in a doorway where this guy had shown up because he was leaving and he wanted to say goodbye. I was standing with some others and he was carrying a large plastic container in the form of a head. It looked like those plastic trick-or-treat pumpkins kids use on Halloween, except it was much larger, brown, and full of milk. The head looked so familiar to me. I took it and said my goodbyes.